Hey everybody, Matt from Nerd Knights Painting coming at you with another episode of Lord of the Rings. We're going to be doing Coalfang from the expansion of the Fantasy Flight game. We're going to turn this ugly gray model into, ooh, look how fancy that is. Look at those eyes, looking pretty good. Hey, if this is your first time stopping by the channel, hey, subscribe. Just hit that little button in the right left-hand corner. Support this channel if you can. I really appreciate it. We're going to be doing a lot of these videos. I'm going to try and knock out 2 videos a week, if not more. Without further ado, though, let's go. Alright, the first thing you want to do is you want to scrape off all those ugly mold lines. If you want to, you can give it a bath, a little bubble bath, light some candles, do whatever you want to do with it. I typically don't because I just want to save time. It's all about time management. So go ahead and scrape all those mold lines off. We're going to use some sticky tack. And we're going to stick this model on top of a old cap for a spray paint. That's what I like to use them for. We're going to go to a well-vented area, the back of my truck. And we're going to spray it all in black. I'm using Chaos Black from Citadel. And once we're all sprayed in black and it's all dry, we're going to do a little shot from above, directly from above, so exactly on top of it, of some Karak White from Citadel, or whatever white you have. It doesn't really matter, just as long as it's black and white. Now we're going to brush on some surface primer from Vallejo. Now if you don't have this, just use Abaddon Black or black from Model Color or just a regular black. And we're going to go over the rocks that the miniature is sitting on. Don't worry about it if you get into feet, it's not a big deal. Now, if you have zero patience like me, I'm using a heat gun to heat it up and dry it so much faster. It's worth the investment, or an old blow dryer from your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever you got. We're going to take some Mechanicus Standard Gray, and we're going to be going over with a dry brush. So get an old flat brush, dip some paint in there, and get most of it, if not almost all of it, off on a paper towel or a towel, whatever you got. And with a downward motion, we're going to be trying to get all the raised areas of the rocks. And again, if you get some on the actual model itself, it's not a big deal at all because we're going to be going over here in a minute with our base colors. So downward strokes, getting all of it, get a nice rough looking edges because it is a rock, so it's not supposed to look exactly that pretty. Our second color we're going to be using on the dry brush is going to be a Longbeard Gray, which is a part of the dry paints from Citadel. You can use a lighter color gray if you have that. If you don't have exactly Longbeard Gray, but a Administrative Gray and something like that would work as well. Now we're going to use a little Praxeti White. I'm sure I butchered that. Or if you just have regular white, and get almost all of the paint off your paintbrush, so you just have a little bit. And this is just going to make the top portions stand out a little bit more. And to just kind of break up the color a little bit, again, we're going to use Karak Stone, but we're going to just get almost all of that paint off the brush. So make sure we're getting all of that paint off the brush, and we're just kind of doing some subtle tone variations between a white and a light brown. And that's all we're going to do for the rocks. All right, we're going to mix our tone together that we're going to use for the skin, and the first color we're going to use is Mournfang Brown. 1 to 2 brushfuls of Mournfang Brown. I'm using a wet palette, but you can use a well if you want, whatever you got. All right, now get 1 nice large brushful of Balor Brown, and we are going to mix that together. Again, if you're using a well, just put it in the well. If you're using a wet palette like I typically always use, go ahead and mix it in there. This tone is going to be our skin tone, so we're going to be using it just for the skin. So watch what I'm doing here, and we're all going to be getting the face, the back hind legs, the legs themselves, the tail, any part that's skin. Most of this miniature is the fur, and we're going to go over that in the next step, but just go over it. And the reason we did the zenithal highlighting is because we don't want to do a whole lot of highlighting on this miniature. We want the tones to kind of poke through. The lighter tones are obviously going to be on the top, where the zenith, where the sun is the highest. So we kind of want to just let that speak for itself. And so we're thinning our paints very well. We have a nice thinning paint, and we're going to let that brightness and the darkness poke through our paint. I end up doing 2 coats on this entire thing. Make sure the first coat dries completely, and then you can do the second coat. For our fur, the first color we're going to mix together is a little Rhinox Hide, so 2 brushfuls of Rhinox Hide. And then 1 drop of dark sea blue, or the darkest color blue you have. It's going to come out like a kind of a dark gray tone, almost like a Mechanicus standard gray, but maybe just a little bit darker. And we're going to go over the entirety of the fur in this. Again, thin your paints and let that zenithal highlighting poke through your paints, and you're going to really see it once we put that wash on. We're going to get over all of the little fur patches on the legs and on the tail, and we're taking our time. If you mess up, obviously if you had a wet palette, it's not a big deal because you can go back and clean it up with the paint we just mixed for the fur or for the skin. And we're just slowly going over. I'm using a size 1 brush, and we're just cruising over all of that fur. And don't forget to get the ears. For some reason I overlooked this part. And go back with your skin base tone and get that nice ear on both sides of the head. For the teeth and claws, I'm using a little Wraithbone, which is I think a new color from Citadel. Last time I was at Games Workshop I saw it and I said I gotta have this because I'm a paint junkie. Plastic crack addict, whatever you want to call it. I can't stop. It's an addiction. I know. I'm sure you guys all feel the same if you're listening to this while painting. If you don't have this, just use your normal Rhinox Flesh Shade or your Shabdi Bone for the teeth and the claws. For the little nosy, we're using a little Screamer Pink, or whatever kind of dark pink you have. For the arrows, shafts, we're going to be using a little Doombull Brown, or whatever kind of brown you got. Just a different type of brown tone than you have for the skin. I guess you could use black if you wanted to, so I'm sure they made black arrows. The orcs did, or whatever, shooting this. And for the last base color on the miniature, we're going to be using a little Mephiston Red for the fletchings on the arrows. We're going to be using the wash for the entire miniature, so we're going to douse this thing. So you're going to use 2 brushfuls of Lahmian Medium. Good lord. 2 nice big brushfuls of Agrax Earthshade. And 1 big brushful of Nulin Oil. And we're going to use this for the entire model. So douse this entire model in the wash. Just go ahead and go all over it. And don't be afraid. You need to get it. Hey, if you're watching this right now and you're thinking, oh, it's not too bad. It's not too bad at all. Why don't you hit that subscribe button? Trying to grow the channel. Trying to keep support going. That kind of lets me know that, hey, you actually like these videos. And as I'm looking at right now, 295 people do. So let's keep it going. Once that wash is dry, and I use the heat gun again to do it in about 30 seconds, I'm going to start with the arrows. And I'm just going to do a reapplication of Doombull Brown. Now, you don't want to hit the entire arrow. Just hit the little cylinder portions in the middle. Kind of let that dark tone and the recesses next to the fletchings kind of poke out just a little bit. For the fletchings, we're going to be going over it with a little Evil Sunz Scarlet. Now, you don't want to hit the entire fletching. You just want to hit the edges and a little bit into the inside. So maybe about 50% of the total fletching, because we're going to use the next tone as our final tone, and that's going to be on the edge more. Now with the little Wild Rider Red, go ahead and hit just the edges. Now if you wanted to do the fletchings that are just on top of the miniature that are facing towards the sun, if it was in at high noon, then you can do those as well. Or just those, I mean. To highlight the teeth and claws, we're only going to use one paint, and that's just going to be Screaming Skull. Now you can go a little bit further and do a little Flayed One's Flesh if you want to take it a little bit further, but I felt like as soon as I did this, I'm like, wow, that makes it look pretty clean. So I liked it just like that, but you can take it one step further if you would like. Our original fur tone, we're going to be adding just a little droplet of Deck Tan, or if you don't have Deck Tan, use Shabdi Bone or a Screaming Skull will work just fine. And all we're going to use is a small brush. So if you're using a size 1, maybe a size 0, maybe a size 2-0, something a little bit small, and we're just going to pick out strands of hair. But as you can already tell, as long as you followed thinning your paints correctly, that white is already sticking out through the paint on top. So we just want to kind of lighten up those parts just a little bit, a little edge highlighting, picking out little hairs, and we're just basically highlighting the fur just to give it a little bit of contrast from the dark gray to the light gray, and that's all we're doing. Now we're going to take the original skin tone, which is the Mournfang Brown and the Balor Brown, and we are going to just highlight some portions. On top of the ear, on top of the nose, a little bit above the eyes, the cheekbones, I guess you could say. Don't really do anything underneath the miniature or on the sides of it. We're just going to keep the lightest tones on top where the sun is going to hit. And highlight that nose real quick with a little bit of pink horror, or whatever pink you have that's lighter than the original base tone. Now for doing the focal point and the most crucial part of this miniature, the eyes. You're going to take some Khorne Red and you're going to thin it down very generously, so more than normal, so it's going to be super watery. You're going to highlight the entirety of the eye and the portion underneath the eye, and if you want to do a little bit above, don't do much, but get it all in the recesses above it and below it, more so below it, as that eye is going to start glowing here in the next setup. So go ahead and go on the bottom and watch what I'm doing. The next highlight is going to be a Mephiston Red, and we're going to hit the entirety of the lens, and we are going to get a nice watered down tone here in a second, but hit that entirety of the lens on both sides. I know it's kind of hard to see on the left side, but it's there, and kind of build up that color a little bit. Now take some Lahmian Medium, or thin your paints extremely well with some water, and go ahead and do the bottom portion underneath the eye. And you want to go just a little bit below, so watch what I'm doing, and that's how we're going to start building up our highlights, and it's going to make the eye look, it's going to start glowing in these next steps, and you'll see. So just do what I'm doing, and make sure you thin your paints. You don't want it very thick at all. Next color is going to be a little evil Sunz Scarlet, and all you want to do is hit the lens. If you can imagine the lens being 100%, you want to hit it about 80% with this specific color. You want to do it on both sides, but you're doing it nice and neatly, and maybe go over a couple times with a couple brush strokes. Not brush strokes. Holy crap. And 80% of the lens, and we're going to be doing less and less with each color. The next color is going to be a little Wild Rider Red, and again, if we're considering the lens to be 100% or a full circle, do about 60% just on the surface, and we're going to slowly and slowly hit our brush over the top of it, and to do about 60% of that lens, and you're going to start to see that is starting to glow already. I know you can notice it's already starting to glow. Now go ahead and take some Troll Slayer Orange. We were at 60% with the last color. Let's do a little bit about maybe 25% with Troll Slayer Orange, and you're just hitting that top portion of the lens because we got 2 colors to do after this. Now take a little Yriel Yellow and do about 15%, just that top little portion of that lens, just to break up the color, and you can notice it. Oh man, this thing is glowing. And then we're going to add one final touch. Take some Dorn Yellow, or if you don't have Dorn Yellow, get some white and mix a little bit of yellow in it, and then you're just doing a little sliver on that lens, just a little sliver, and that makes it look like it's really glowing, and it looks good. And everyone's favorite part of painting a miniature, finishing the base. Just using black from Model Color or Abaddon Black. I use both of them, just feels like which one I want to reach for. It really has no rhyme or reason. And as we're looking at it in a different light, you can tell that eye is really glowing. And you did a fantastic job. I'm proud of you. And as we look at it again from the spinning wheel thing that I got off Amazon, it looks pretty good. And that is not a lot of steps. Like, we didn't do a whole hell of a lot in that model, and it looks pretty freaking rad when you put that thing on the table. The eyes are crucial to this miniature, but you did a great job. I just want to say thank you for following this tutorial. If you can, do me a favor, spread the word. Tell a friend, get some buddies that you know you like to paint with, and say, hey, check out this channel, and why don't you subscribe. But thanks for stopping by, and I appreciate it. See you on the next one. Paint on.